January 24, 2022. Joe versus Carole. I've been bombarded by press wanting my reaction to Peacock dropping the trailer for Joe versus Carole last Friday. This is my reply. My husband and I look forward to seeing Kate McKinnon and Kyle MacLachlan portray us, even though we expect it to be a parody based on the trailer. Both are talented actors, and I expect Joe versus Carole will be a lot more entertaining than the situation was in real life. As for Netflix Tiger King Murder, Mayhem, and Madness, and Wondery's Joe Exotic Over My Dead Body, and all the other spinoffs, none of these programs created for entertainment value really got at the main issues of big cat and cub abuse and the imminent extinction of big cats due to cub petting, like we do in Discovery Plus's Carole Baskin's Cage Fight. My fear is that in the next 5 years, while people are morbidly obsessed with the plight of my former husband, Don Lewis, we will have reached a point of no return for the planet by failing to safeguard the world's most iconic species. Winter Bobcat. May the force be with you, rang through my head. We had been called to New Tampa about a bobcat acting strangely, about 40 minutes away. By the time we got there, the bobcat was hunkered down in a tangle of jasmine, ferns, and blackberry thorns that made about a 10-foot thick ring around a majestic palm tree. Jamie and Victor have had COVID Omicron since last Tuesday. The only helpers available at the sanctuary were Karma Hurworth, who is older than me, and Michael Heap, an IT guy from the UK. His claim to fame is that he's been on a number of these rescue trips and has never even seen a bobcat. We circled the palm on our hands and knees and used the long ends of our nets to lift up the thick tangle to try and catch a peek underneath. Michael saw movement, and we heard the bobcat bark a warning at us, so we knew she was in there somewhere. There was just no way to flush her out, though, because she was perfectly safe as long as she was as long as she was within the 25 to 30 foot wide brush pile. It was too thick to crawl under to her. So I found the barest spot on top, climbed over the thicker outer walls of vines, and sunk down next to the tree. My plan was to scare her out into their nets. Her plan was to hold her ground against this one stupid interloper, rather than face 4 people with nets and the 3 neighbors who were holding up a barrier we brought to keep her from fleeing into the adjacent swamp. Why is it always so cold when I have to chase a bobcat through murky, muddy swamps? Stay focused, Carole. She's about 3 feet from my face. I wriggle my way back up to standing, where I can hold a hand up as high as I can to be seen above the jasmine, and point to where she's tucked in, so everyone can gather around that part of the ring. Once I hear them move into place, I drop back down into the darkness. I can only make out a silhouette of her ears, and can almost feel the spit in my face with each threatening hiss. I ask Michael to throw me a blanket I saw laying on a lawn chair, so that if she does launch at me, I have some way to secure her. I can barely move. I'm on my knees, leaning impossibly forward towards her, and only suspended by the vines. The brush gets more dense, and I can't get any closer to her. Jamie asks if I can touch her with something, but there's nothing down here to use. Someone drops a snare pole down the hole I came in through, and with a tremendous amount of struggle, I am able to get it turned around and facing her with the looped end. There's just no room to maneuver in here. Touching her with the open end just made her madder, and more determined to fight me and the pole. Running from us didn't seem to be an option in her mind. God, I love bobcats. It was probably only seconds, but it felt like a long time before I got up the nerve to slip the noose over her ears and start drawing it tighter. I couldn't see her other than her ears, so I didn't know if I had the slip knot around her throat or maybe, hopefully, a front leg as she was swinging at me. In 44 years of catching bobcats, I've never used a snare pole. I hate them. I am so fearful of the cat strangling or breaking his neck in the wild thrashing that is sure to ensue. This was the only option in this situation, and now I had to close the loop, tight enough to hold a cat I could barely see without killing her. May the force be with you, rang in my head. I pulled until it felt right to stop, but there was no tension on the line that gave me a clue. It was only the force. Jamie said to push the pole out toward them because they couldn't get a net or even gloved hands into the thick vines until the bobcat could be pushed out clear of them. The bobcat rolled onto her back, screaming at me, and I took that as a good sign that she was getting enough oxygen, so I started pushing the pole out toward Jamie. I couldn't see what was happening, but when it sounded like they had her within the grasp of their nets and gloves, I wriggled backwards to find my iPhone, which had been scraped from my pocket a while back. Shaking, I opened the camera app, clawed my way to the surface, and held the phone way over my head and pointed in the direction of the commotion to try and capture the transfer of the bobcat into the waiting carrier. Once she was in, Victor released the snare, something I wasn't sure any of us even knew how to do, and they closed the door on the very, very angry, scared bobcat. I think this is the same bobcat we've been trying to catch since June of 2020. That was the first video we got of a bobcat who appeared to be suffering from a broken pelvis or some neurological disease. FLM had first been noted in Florida panthers in 2019, but I don't think any bobcat or Florida panther had been caught alive with it or lived more than a few hours after capture. We didn't catch her in 2020, but in February of 2021, we were called to the same location and did trap her. She was strong enough in the front end to bust the door off our coyote trap and got away. This bobcat was just 2.2 miles away, and people in both communities had noted that everyone knew her, as she wasn't terribly shy, and she was a good neighbor, i.e., not a pet killer. I've been watching her on the cameras. She came in at a mere 6 pounds 4 ounces, which is less than half of the 15 to 20 pounds she should weigh in her frame. She's eating like there's no tomorrow and sleeps for 12 plus hours at a time. Watching her walk, fall over, collapse, and then try again makes me wonder how she lived this long. People must have been feeding her. I weep at her suffering. I'm overjoyed that she's here, and hopefully we can figure out what is causing FLM and how to cure it. Feline leukomyelopathy, FLM, is a disorder which affects non-domestic cats. The disorder causes microscopic changes in the brain and spine, causing varying degrees of rear leg weakness and difficulty walking. The disorder was identified in panthers and bobcats in Florida in 2019. We've been coordinating with the Florida Wildlife Commission to do a spinal tap on her as soon as she's stabilized and Jamie is over COVID. If you're enjoying my diary, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find other ways to connect to me over at bigcatrescue.org/Carole.Baskin.